Hello, hello, hello. Happy Friday, everyone. Welcome to the Hard Food Live and Foundation FM Takeover. My name is Lavonda Dawn, and I'm here with the collective, the one and only Hard Food Live. Introduce yourselves.
Hello, hello. Hi, my name is FATLIP. I'm 1/3 of the Hardfood Collective.
Hey, it's MASKITA here. I'm also part of Hardfood.
I'm China. I'm part of Hardfood too.
And I'm super excited because we have a panel talk to engage you all in topics that are about the Caribbean community and, of course, the diaspora. So I hope you're locked in. If you're not, tell a friend to tell a friend. And we are going to get into it with some questions. But first, I'm going to let you enjoy the music for a tiny bit. All right. So for the first question, before I start, I would like panelist number one, not me lips in the mic, panelist number one, to please introduce yourself. What is your name and your pronouns?
Hey, I'm Kelsey. My pronouns are she, they.
Okay, perfect. And what is it that you do?
I'm one of these events/community producers and researchers in London and beyond, I guess.
Not I guess, we have to believe it. So the first question I'm going to ask you is, what do you love about being from the Caribbean region? And you can be specific to your country.
So this one I love to think about, and I think of different answers every time, but today it's half, and it's very relevant because I've recently been traveling, but it's half a bit about our resilience / our nomadic nature, like whether or not we've been like forcibly displaced or have chosen to like migrate. I love, we as Caribbeans, you know, our diaspora is so large, and that means that our conversation around our culture is a lot more nuanced than a lot of other people. My family are Jamaican, but I'm also born here in the UK, so it's always interesting looking at the intersection and what does this like nomadic ancestry means for me. And it's interesting that wherever we've kind of settled as a people, we influence so much, whether it's language is a big one across many places, fashion, obviously food and culture and all of those things. But like just watching how we've able to like settle in places and do what I believe is like different from what we understand of like almost white supremacist colonial settling. Like we settle in a way that's more like embracing of other people's cultures, and embracing of our own in that. And that's what I love about us, to be honest.
I think mainly for me, I ask this question all the time. I think there's so many different things. I think something someone said the other day, which I loved, was humor, but obviously like in a transformative way. It's not just like, you know, telling joke and that kind of thing. It's like the nicknames, just the general, I don't know, like the general camaraderie and kind of like colloquial way in which people just engage, which actually kind of forms, not to use the dreaded word, but like community, like within that. I remember when I went back, so I'm half Jamaican, half Grenadian, and when I went back to Grenada for the first time, like just understanding like even names and nicknames of people in the village and like how that nickname will stick with you for like the rest of your life. I remember like, I think my dad's like over 6 foot. He's not even that tall, but like his name became like Tally Man. Like there was Ice Cream Man. Like it's very like, it's not even like a deep thing, but I just love how that's just kind of runs across Caribbean culture. It's not just obviously isolated to Caribbean culture, but it is something that I think is very important in how we communicate with each other.
And it's nice because it's like you said, it's something that we can identify in others. Like, even though we are not in the Caribbean right now, we have the same ethos. Like, you'll have a friend, and the way that you create the nickname for that friend is based on what you've seen and what you've grown up with. So my dad has a friend called 12 Finger. Like, and that's his bestie. And growing up, I just thought that was normal because he's 12 finger because he has 12 fingers, you know? So it's very literal, but yeah, I like the answers. I like as well the connection between both, especially because when we talk about forming community, it's like we're welcoming, but at what cost? So that leads me to one of the other questions, which is, how do we successfully gatekeep our culture? And do you think it's necessary? Do you think we should welcome everyone? Obviously, I'm biased. I don't, because I think it's diluted the way that we communicate and form communities within Babylon, lol. But what do you guys think? It's a sticky one.
I mean, my answer for this is always like a two-pronged, and I say this for many reasons. Like, yes, I believe the culture should be gate-kept, which is ironic because I run community spaces and events around my heritage.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I believe even a part of my story should be not included. Yeah, so I'm a bit of a hypocrite when it comes to this one. I think I think we should, as a peoples, as a diaspora, like, speak more about how do we uplift authentic stories, especially when we're creating, curating, and speaking from like the West and in other places. Authentic stories, as opposed to just responding to the commodification of our culture.
Yeah.
So like things like, are we producing artworks that are really reflective of, let's say, quote unquote, or like island life? You know, I think Island Life is the name of an art show, or any type of show, I think, is a bit of a lazy one.
Yeah.
And it includes so many people in that, if we just look at Jamaican heritage, as opposed to actually really shining like real life stories and talking about the real differences between being diaspora and being actually in a region. So yeah, I feel really strongly about gatekeeping the culture a little bit, because I think traditionally there was a need to open things up to include people, and I still feel like there's space for that, but there's nothing wrong in centering a space around what we believe to be like in tune with our histories and our ancestry. And I think it's also important to make sure we're in dialogue as people, as creatives that are responding to culture. We're in dialogue with, you know, real preservers of our history and ancestry in the islands. Like, are we speaking to people that, you know, as a day job are looking at the histories and preserving kind of our Caribbeanness or our Africanness, especially in the face of where we've got like tourism that is displacing people in the region, where we've got like, you know, gentrification of these islands also. Like, are we in dialogue with people in the region to help, like, you know, our global solidarity, or are we just responding to our Jamaicanness without, you know, acknowledging the fact that I am born in the UK? And in the second half of the question, I guess looking at like, did you like a bit like when you said how, like the solutions? I can't think of one clear one, but I do have a bit of a case study from somewhere else. So I spent a lot of time in Egypt, and I was just there for the past month. And if anyone watched Coachella recently, you might have heard about a singer called Mohammed Ramadan, who got on the stage in like some A-level costume tech, ancient Egypt like type costume, with some, like, he was wearing like a bra top, and even though some of the backlash was like totally homophobic, I think there was agreement across so many different elements of the spectrum that he was just misrepresenting what is known as an Egyptian culture. And it's like, for Egyptian people, I know like anti-blackness could be a thing for them, and there's many ways an Egyptian could look, but for the culture that's so rich in history and a long ancient history, there's like a general consensus or conversation of what it means to be Egyptians. So when I think of that example, I think of what we can learn from that, and things like, where do we have discussion about what does it mean to be Caribbean?
Yeah.
Where do we have the discussion about what we're okay with going out, and how stereotypes might have changed over time and stuff like that? And do we create formal structures for that? So like the example, the Egyptian one is funny because Mohammed Ramadan is now being investigated by a whole syndicate of musicians and Egyptian culture, and that's like gatekeeping to its extreme. Maybe some might argue, and I am slightly concerned for his safety with the backlash, but you know, that's an example where I see like, do we have to take it this far? Like, do we need large cultural events like Notting Hill Carnival? Do we need more of like a, like, what's the theoretical overseers, you know, like what does it mean? But yeah, I've said a lot to this question, so
no, but I enjoyed it. Thank you for your contribution. So if you've just joined, the question was, how do we need to gatekeep Caribbean culture? And would you like to share?
Yeah, I couldn't barely add. You said so much and touched on so many points that I relate to. But to answer it briefly, yes, I think we should gatekeep our culture. What I think needs to happen is there needs to be a lot of ground level work. I think we're really like uncritical as people around who is allowed to consume and represent our culture on the mainstream. Not just in the mainstream, but in a lot of spaces. And who gets precedent around like what is Caribbeanness and what it means to be from that region. How we go about it, I guess it looks like you were saying, connecting more with people who live and like inhabit the region currently, because we live in the UK, for example, like they're of a bit of a different experience, and creating that connection, I think, leads us to more nourishment, and something will come from that, I believe.
I wanted to ask, do we have any other panelists that would like to contribute? Don't be shy. If you're like watching live, we have a plethora. Also, introduce yourself, name and pronouns, and then share your thoughts. Let us into your beautiful creative mind, as long as you're holding the mic nice and close.
Hello, I'm Chesa Lucina. Pronouns they, them. I did not hear the question.
You can reiterate.
Basically, should we gatekeep and how? Should we gatekeep the culture and how?
All right, coming in strong. Well, to be honest, I would have to say to some degree there should be some gatekeeping, because I feel like music is quite sacred, and holding the space for certain genres of music isn't easily done, especially when you have no context to that music and not much relation. And for you, it's a vibe. For someone else, it's awakening their ancestors spiritually on the dance floor. You know, it's like it takes different people to different places. And I think that's something to be honored properly.
And if you guys don't know, Chesa actually creates sound systems. So there's a different level of insight there, rather than the ordinary consumer like me and the civilians. Would you like to share your thoughts?
Hi, I'm 16th, she, her. I sort of agree with what you were saying in terms of, to a degree. I feel like when it comes to Caribbean culture specifically, there's a lot of like, I think a lot of Western voices and sounds are at the forefront, and I just don't think that's right. I think with a lot of elder Caribbean people sort of passing on, I think it's really important that we hear voices from people that actually live in the Caribbean right now, and maybe we have more of an exchange in terms of like resources from us to them, and then their stories and experiences coming over. Yeah, I don't know. I would just say, like, when I was recently there in December, it was a lot of like American influences I heard out there, which was kind of sad. But I think that's because of geographically, it's just, that's close in. And I feel like in the UK, we mainly get just echoes of, more like mainstream, sort of more mainstream, echoes of the culture rather than what people are living and breathing every day. So it would be good to share those aspects and sort of dilute
Yeah.
the caricature aspects.
And what islands are you from?
I'm from Jamaica.
Oh, period. And Cheza? Not
I'm
the
from
train.
St. Vincent and Trinidad.
Period. So it's
Small island, yeah.
it's not. It's nice that we've got a range. Oh, I didn't even say I'm from Jamaica, Barbados. Oh yeah, duh. I think one thing that struck me in the conversation so far is that it's difficult. We live here, but we didn't choose to live here, and there are reasons that we're here, and sometimes it feels like we can't win because we're from foreign, but we're carrying our culture and the culture of our homes throughout our real lives. I think the difficulty is when you have parents or grandparents that don't feel comfortable teaching you about your culture. For me, one of the things that I'm a linguist, and one of the things I think is a bit sad is that growing up, the way that my dad described patois was very much like, we chat patois, but we speak English. It's slang. It's not the same status as English. And, you know, when we're speaking about things that are important, we need to speak in a language that's not our own. Linguistically, patois is not broken English. If it's broken English, then Flemish is broken Dutch. You know, there is a structure to it, and there is a reverence that is not being held. And you will go to Eastern Europe and see dancehall queens and competitions with Bumbleclaw as their slogan, but then, you know, you go to Jamaica and it's not even a standardized language yet. So it's hard to reconcile with engaging in our culture and also putting it in a context of us being here. It's hard when, you know, you're speaking to people that are from the Caribbean and are born and raised there and feel like we have it easier. There are obviously differences that we experience, but being in a country where you are the minority, you hold on to your culture, or what you think is your culture, the caricature, you hold on to it much more. And that's why I think it produces so many like horrendous versions of what people see as Caribbean culture. We don't have the nuance because we're not gatekeeping, and we're just allowing everyone and anyone, M.R, to be a part of our culture. And it's like, at what cost? But yeah, one of the questions that I want to hear from you both, because we didn't get to ask you, is what do you love about being from the Caribbean?
I love the freedom of expression, the way that our bodies move. And I also love how much music is a center of our everyday. Like, here you will get sound complaints if music is playing in your garden, out of your speaker as you're on the phone. When you're in the Caribbean, there's music everywhere, constantly, on the buses, on the street, and people really recognize how much of just a vibe settler music can be. Like, it holds space, it brings people together to lime, but it also, you know, allows you to relax and share in dances, which also carry culture, which also carry stories and lessons in history. So I wish that, you know, this country would be a bit less Babylonistic with it and like let us listen to the music that actually everyone would actually just enjoy. I don't get how anyone doesn't enjoy being in the Caribbean, but suddenly when it's loud, it's like, no, you know, so it doesn't make sense to me, but I love it.
I would say like the way nature is centered, like the biodiversity really like helps you to become more open and like, you know, curious. And I feel like here with modern being like grey and like, you know, bland, it kind of makes you more fearful of new things. And so, yeah, and I feel like the way, you know, even just like hearing the bird sounds and stuff like that, it kind of made me more open to incorporating that in music, or wanting to hear more nature sounds in music. So
I like that. I didn't think about that because, you know, concrete jungle and all of that. What is an element of culture from your island, aside from the music, that you think should be celebrated more or isn't spoken about enough? So aside from the music, what do you feel like people should platform more? For me, I think it's fashion. Because, you know, like archives, not The Voice, you know, the archives of even like Notting Hill Carnival in the 90s, and like seeing all of the different variations of hair, makeup, like accessories, they're not new just because we're only seeing them now. It's just we might not have had access to an archive. So I feel like learning more about like why people wore things the way they did as well. Like I watched Sinners the other day. I won't give any spoilers, but I was looking at a thread that was dissecting the work of the costume designer. And one of the things that they mentioned was that at the time, because it was the Great Depression, the black people wanted to create style with whatever they had. So if it was baggy, they're wearing it baggy. They weren't adapting it for the film because that's not how it would have been worn. And I think about how we are trying to express ourselves in a country that is not the climate that we are actually for. So we're constantly having to be like wise and like fashionable whilst layering. Like it's cold most of the time, you know, and how that looks across like other places, whether that's like France, UK, Germany, whether it's somewhere outside of the Caribbean where Caribbean culture thrives. So yeah, I want more fashion tips. To me, to you.
I guess I would say like natural medicines and all of those things that we use to heal us. Like we come from those lands, and I think not having access to certain foods means our bodies aren't nourished the same way that our ancestors were, or our, you know, our elders were. And I think that is affecting us in ways as well. And awareness of how, you know, different plants that we would have used for like certain diseases that we're kind of getting riddled with while we're out here, but like out there, you know, we have elders that live till 90 plus. Yeah. And it's like, but like, you know, they're glowing, and it's just like this, like older men are climbing trees and like, you know, getting them coconuts out the trees, and it's just like, I have no idea how to do that. Yeah. I wouldn't even know how to approach like climbing a tree like that. And that is something you would have learned from generations. Yeah. You know, that's a skill that is not something you necessarily would have picked up in a book. And I think those sorts of things, from medicinal things to practical things, like even ways to use plants to either build like houses, to furniture, to cooking equipment. Yeah. It's like we have lost that ability to be resourceful with our environment. And I think there's something so beautiful that Caribbean islands and, you know, a lot of countries in Africa do so superbly. Yeah. That we should tap into.
I like that.
Yeah, no, literally, I was thinking herbalism, and I like, it's something that my dad would always be like, take this, take that, and then as a child you reject it, and then you grow older and you realize like, oh, there's no nutrient in foods, like, and you're, you know, you're just realizing that is right. But yeah, I think it was like really shocking to go back and like see how expensive the price of like fruit and vegetables were in the grocery stores. And then my granddad was telling me about how like the government doesn't really encourage people to grow their own. Yeah, they like prefer imports, and it's just such a shame. So I feel like, you know, being able to tap into growing your own medicinal herbs and stuff like that can like help to just not have such a like reliance on the government and stuff like that. So that's something that I think should be platformed and spoke about more.
Period. Do you have anything else to share?
I got slightly distracted as I wanted to start ranting about food tariffs, but I will save that for some other politics hour.
That's in the Patreon. Patreon for the agriculture food rant.
I could go on for way too long about this. But really great points, people. Love that. Mine is a bit of a random one, and like earlier on when you mentioned like dancehall queens, it made me think of this, and this is like also a really subculture random thing, but forgive me, I did say my pronouns were she, they. But one thing I would like to see is more of a celebration of dancehall cultures and like dancehall queens. Yeah. I think like I watch a lot of like rubbish TV. I also watch a lot of Drag Race, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I would love to see like people drawing more on the comparisons between that type of culture. Yeah. I would love to see more of a dance culture that celebrates like, whether it's like footwork or whining together, which is totally different from twerking, but different story. But yeah, I would love to see more of a stronger, I feel like, especially for like queer Caribbeans like myself or queer Caribbeans in the region, I would love to see more of us be able to like really put a stamp of like, this is also us and our Caribbean culture. Also, I think the same way Caribbean culture penetrates so many parts of society, I want to see us with like a big slice in like the queer circles and the dance
Yeah.
circles, because they also take a lot from us as well. So
Big
like,
time.
are we offering like that not the education but the grounding and the ownership of that? Like I don't think and I also feel like by doing that we can also open up conversations, whether it's here or in the Caribbean, of like, you know, queer subcultures and different subcultures. And I think the kind of solidarity, like the state of what I know from especially like the island that I'm from, like that solidarity is very much needed between like our queer cousins over there. So like, and what I said about dancers also, even like, you know, I don't even necessarily mean like queer dancers, I mean just any good dancers. I think it's about time to take some more claim on like some of the practice of dance culture and things.
You know, I had a thought the other day, everyone's going to drag me, but that's fine. Dancehall is too camp to be as homophobic as it is.
Yes.
Like, we're in white from head to toe,
Colours.
and then you've now got robotic accessories,
Bling bling.
and then you'll go to the rave and they're like, chichima. I'm like, really? Like, the mirror, it's not showing the same thing. And the thing is, by distancing queerness, we actually are losing recipes, because people are trying so hard to fit into like what a Jamaican man, for example, would look like here. But you go there and, babes, we're dressing the same, you know, and it's not something that they're seeing as this is not masculine. It's a different expression, and there's not as much, there's more fluidity, but it's also like there is still that threat of violence. There's still that threat of, you know, death. And I think sometimes when we even talk about like music, with whether it's dancehall or soca, because you hear like a lot of lines and don't really clock what they're saying until afterwards, but there is a lot of like contradiction between we love everyone and we're making happy music and Irie, and then also like, yeah, family, wave your flags, but then we hate you all if you're not straight. So it's kind of like you'll be throwing it back and then you're like, wait, actually you hate me. Like, let me cross my arms actually. So yeah, it's like there is so much about us, but when we've been moved now to the UK or Europe, it's like you might see 3 representations and feel like you need to be in one of those boxes, or feel like you are not Caribbean enough because you're not straight or you don't present in the way that everyone else presents. I got another question for you all. But before, I need an introduction. Come through. So tell us your name. Don't be shy with the mic, okay? Your name, your pronouns, and what you do. Also, I like your hair.
Thank you. You know, fashionably late, emphasis on fashion.
Tilt the
I
mic
go
up
by
a bit.
Talia Goddess. I'm 22 from Brooklyn, New York. So we repping. Well, not too much. My background is Guyanese by way of the UK. I'm a musician, DJ, producer, creative entrepreneur.
Period.
My name's TJ, pronouns he, him. I'm a producer, focusing around events, focused around community, also produce films and also photography. But yeah, thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. So I like that we have 2 producers because we're about to talk music. Okay. So a question I have, I keep lips in the mic, guys. We have tension. What do you think about the future of dancehall, soca, and beyond music? Boom.
Does anyone have start? Okay.
So for me personally, I feel like as the years have gone by, I've been working with a lot of Caribbean events recently, and within that time I've been listening through the archives of Caribbean music. And when it comes to the likes of, let's say, dancehall is probably the most prevalent worldwide. And as that's happened, it's almost as if it's become westernized within a certain way. You're hearing certain influences from the likes of, someone brought up earlier about its geographical, Jamaica's geographical location to America. Yeah. And you're hearing a lot more of that influence within the music, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but at the same time, we are almost losing those recipes. It's a fact that people are forgetting certain types of sound systems, certain types of just instruments that you would usually hear that are very identifiable to the dancehall music of the 70s and the 80s. But nowadays it's like, oh, that's almost gone. That's a pastime that people don't really think about. And there's names that were so prevalent within those times that I grew up with because my mum grew up with and my grandma grew up with, that maybe my younger siblings won't grow up with.
Yeah.
So that's just something that I've recognized just looking through within those archives, whilst also being someone that listens to that music on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to Caribbean music as a whole, I feel like there's a lot of Afrobeats influence that has then come in. Once again, not a bad thing at all. Actually, I'm here for it. That cross-continental influence, I feel like it's something that we need more of, especially in this day and age of everyone trying to do up diaspora walls on Twitter or whatever. Do you know what I'm saying? But at the same time, it's almost as if everything's kind of getting muddled up and it's almost becoming a new thing entirely. So when it comes to dancehall, beyond soca, I feel like is the next one where we are going to see that Western influence come in, and I'm not sure how that's going to look, how that's going to sound rather. So yeah, that's just my personal opinion and my predictions on the future.
I like that. I'm gonna pin the date, and in 1 year I'm gonna come back and say, "Hey,
please,
DJ called it."
Please, I've been making so many predictions recently. I need to actually write these down. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
But
you're
thank
tapping in, and then Cheza.
I
Go for it.
yeah, I really resonate with what you were saying. I think for me, I think the future, something I've been thinking about a lot more recently is just like, I really enjoy Caribbean accents, and like all you hear is like patois, but you don't hear like Guyanese accents, you don't hear Trini accents, you don't hear all the range of like Caribbean expression and how that translates through music. But I feel like now it's coming up, like, so I'm looking forward to more countries outside of Jamaica getting visibility and kind of this like hybridization of like Western sonic influences in terms of like club music or just the energy, and still like keeping that Caribbean element alive. And the other thing, going to your point again, I've been listening to this song nonstop, Tiny Whiny, and just like old soca, they're using the steel pan, they're using everything is played live in real time. They got the horn section, they've got so many instrumentalists, and just thinking from like a musician standpoint, it doesn't only end or start at like DJing and nightlife. It's also the people making the music from all aspects of being musicians and instrumentalists, like even back in the day, the bassists, the drummers, keeping that rhythm and that groove, and just really keeping that to the next generation as well, like what it means to be fully embedded in the practice and tradition of music from a theory perspective through the Caribbean lens, because that is also super westernized when we talk about musical education and some of the influences. But I think like it's us doing the work, keeping the tradition alive across like what's come before, reimagining it for the future. And that's my take.
T, I really agree with the both of you actually, and it kind of inspired the point I was gonna say, and now a new point as well. But so one of the things that I guess I've been trying to do I'm like a baby producer, so I've only been doing it for like about a couple years, and I haven't released anything, but you might have heard a dub plate in a set or two. And one of the genres that I've been particularly experimenting with, or two of the genres I've been particularly experimenting with, mainly live, because I don't make the music until about like now in my life, but I would do it by blending songs together, and it would be with jungle and soca. And for me, there was some point at some time where the both of those two together just kind of clicked, and I was like, this makes so much sense. And also it makes so much sense in me, like being from St. Vincent, and Trinidad, which are like, you know, soca centrals, and then being born in London, which is also a jungle central. I'm like, and then growing up with the both of them very heavily, like with my brothers as ravers and my dad as like sound man, also with records. I just had the two influences very strongly, and then eventually putting them two together in sets created this whole other side where it's like the drums in jungle music kind of reminded me of the rhythm is very ancestral to me, like the
100%.
speed, and the heartbeat that it then puts you into, and I think a lot of that reminds me of what soca feels like. The same, and you know, when you look at a jungle rave going hype and a soca rave going like absolutely apeshit, they're the same in terms of energy, and so putting the two together just made sense. But I do really feel like I hear that in terms of certain aspects, because of the westernization and the modernization of technology sort of taking us to new heights, so we're experimenting in different ways, but we are losing some of the analog and organic ways of making music, it's important to keep those sorts of roots. And then the second point, which leads to that, is when I was recently in Barbados. Yeah, big up, it was beautiful. And St. Vincent, it was gorgeous. But one of the times that I had there, I went to Oystons, which is like a Friday weekly night every Friday, where
it's like
all the locals come.
How Hackney Social used to be.
Yeah, exactly. It's a vibe. But I noticed that, well, someone said back in the day they used to have bands, and that used to be a real, like, you know, the crowd would be together, it would be energetic and live, and people would be having a really good time. And now it's just DJ sets after DJ set, and, you know, not every DJ was bringing it. So it's just like, now there's no one really holding the space. There used to be a team of people on the stage. Now there's one guy behind the decks for the whole thing. Yeah. And you're just like, that element of seeing, a band playing, you know, steel pans and calypso and all those rhythms in live time is a different experience, and it's interactive. So I feel like, there's definitely, there's some developments to go, and I think these points are so important to remember, because then we can carry them forward.
I like that. Do you want to? I have something, but you can go first.
You go first. No,
you looked at me like
no. I'm so anxious about answering this question as a non-music maker.
No, but I think that you give a different perspective because you're a consumer like the rest of us.
Yeah, I guess
I didn't produce yet. I'll start next year. But you know, as a music lover and listener, we have a different perspective that people can benefit from. So go ahead.
Yeah, I guess I can make a few observations. Like, you know, it's kind of like the third point on the past 2 points about seeing the emergence of like party, like what does it mean to participate in music, and participate in this kind of ancestral journey that I'm seeing a lot of people on the London scene at the moment doing. A few talented people in this room that are currently doing it. So that's really nice to see. Something that I'm looking forward to. I'm loving like also the boom or boon, which I always pronounce wrong because I read it like the word, but I'm loving to see that boom, especially someone who, like, my parents are quite old, sorry mum, so I grew up on either roots reggae and some dancehall, and then that was it. So it's been, I'm loving watching everybody else, musicians, really get into their practice and blending. And I think it's gonna do amazing things for, again, like a dance and party scene. And seeing like the similarities across cultures. Like I was doing some work with a friend again, who's Egyptian, and their like working class inner city rap music is very similar to like Bayon, like by a lot. So it was interesting doing comparisons with that with him, and we did a workshop on it. And like, I'm excited to see like other club nights that are now like, hey, this collective from this place is gonna jump with our Caribbean collective. And I can't wait to see the alchemy that comes out of that.
The fusion. I am a music lover down. Like, before I was a DJ, I was just always glued to the radio, or if I heard a sound, I'm like a geek, I'll just research it. And one of the points TJ made about like not losing the base of how the sound is so important, because so reggaeton how it is now, I couldn't engage with it when I first heard it in like 2015, because I was in Spain at the time and I had all these white people around me gagging at the same songs that when we were at uni, they wouldn't come into the dancehall room. So I couldn't understand the disconnect, and I also couldn't understand who was making the music. I said, are these white Spaniards? I didn't know the history. So when I looked at the history and understood like, these are black Panamanians and Jamaicans, and this is the journey of how it started to how it goes now, I realized, okay, so the reason it resonates differently is because it's been taken from its source and it's now been whitewashed and commercialized. But the emergence of Dembow, people love it or hate it. Some people hate it because of how street it is. It's literally the sound of the street. It's not supposed to sound like you've gone in a studio and spent 3 hours to make it perfect. It's noises from people in the street, their motorbikes revving, a crazy frog, and all of these weird repeated sounds. And I feel like Bouillon has the same energy for me. Like, when I first heard Bouillon, I didn't realize that it wasn't soca. I was like, oh, I've heard this track. And my Guadalupean friend was like, don't make me fight you. I said, sorry, girl. I said, I did not know. I'm so sorry. But it's like, we're hearing songs now in parties that we would never have heard before. Before, you couldn't, a soca set, you would hear Palance at the end of a dancehall set. You would not hear soca in the clubs like how we're hearing it now. We would not have this many fetes for young people, like not just, you know, the ones with like the older adults winding in the corner. Like that's also amazing. It's good to have intergenerational parties, but seeing the amount of young people that are creating spaces where there's a gap is so beautiful. And I think that also people being like innovative with how they're producing and making new dancehall, new soca, whilst also collaborating with artists that have been doing it. That is something I really enjoy. Like Vibes Cartel, I watched like 4 hours of his interviews the other day. I was doing my hair when I had hair. And one thing that I got from his interview was that he's not an artist that feels like he's above collaborating or working with younger artists, because he sees their light, he sees their excitement, and he knows that he was the same young artist back in the day that somebody saw a light in. But the thing I have noticed about dancehall culture now is that because a lot of the artists are studio artists and they're not clashing in the dance, they're not in the dance halls, they're not clashing in the dance. So the energy when they perform is dry. Like they look like they've got social anxiety, and I'm like, I get that, we all do, but the way that dancehall is translated is like you're putting a mask on and you're going to war. It's not something that like you're in your mirror practicing crocodile teeth in the mirror. Like you have to be like ready for battle. And I think when you remove dancehall from the dance hall, then it does feel slightly different. So yeah.
Oh no, kind of on that, I guess I would agree, but I'm interested in or just me doing my politics again, but like what does them spaces then look like and mean as things get more politically hostile, or this ideological war that we're in? Like I am seeing some people like, you know, like becoming more DIY with some of like nightlife and parties. And what does that mean like for us, like in the music styles, but like how we're consuming music, like and this point is not something I have an answer to, but I think it's interesting when we're now comparing about how spaces have changed in the Caribbean itself. Is that a reflection of like what's going on there currently, like how spaces are being closed down, or
so it's like, is it a reflection?
Is it a reflection of access? I'm not sure, but an interesting point as a Politico that
I like that. So we have about 15 minutes left of the panel. I have a few other interesting questions. Those from smaller islands, do you feel Jamaica takes center stage when Caribbean culture is discussed, and how can we go about changing this? TJ's eyes were like, don't ask me.
Okay, I think I kind of already said it before.
Yeah.
But okay, to be fair, Guyana's not even in the Caribbean, so
politically it is.
But, but I think culturally, I think I see this a lot more in the UK, because a lot of the predominant culture is Jamaican. And it's so interesting. I was talking to this Italian guy about like reggae music and stuff, and like Caribbean Jamaican culture particularly has become synonymous with Caribbean culture.
Yes.
And that's the first problem, because like when we're talking about Caribbean culture, we're not just talking about Jamaica, but your understanding is just like boyaka boyaka, and like, you know, y'all think that's it, which honestly, fair enough. But like I honestly feel for my Jamaicans, because, you know, it's been so exploited of a culture, and like there's not much there to show in the actual country. So I guess like that export of music, what does that look like from like post-colonial like space? Because a lot of that export of the music and culture from Jamaica, even kind of going back to the Tiny Whiny song, those musicians, there's a lot of Indo-Caribbean people as well.
Yes.
They also, not only were they musicians, they were the politicians as well, in helping to create the cultural fabric post like liberation of these countries.
Yeah.
And arguably the export as well. But it's exploitative. Music is exploitative, period. And I can't even imagine what the deals were looking like back in the day, or even currently. But I think that's kind of where the disconnect in terms of like global awareness of Caribbean cultures on a nuanced level comes from. But I think like it kind of jumping back before, I also don't think that it's meant for everyone to understand, because I do think like when we talk about popular culture, it usually means like westernized and like reach the global circuit.
Yeah.
But I feel like music like this, like soca and bouillon and like even like zouk and compa, you really need to feel that. Like I don't want to see everybody turning up to this. Like this how I'm not turning up to whatever y'all got going on over there. Like, so, like I can't even speak too much to it. But I think it's a pro and a con. But I do think a lot of it comes from like the infrastructure of that country in terms of like the labels, the studios, the importance that the government places on it as a thing to export. But even with like social media now, it's becoming more viral and more like accessible, especially from like post-migrant like kids who are like their background is from like these countries, but they're like in the UK, they're in New York. They're able to keep that energy alive. Yeah. So I do think it's very much a subculture. Like I think it reflects exactly where the countries are in terms of the global landscape. I think it's hard to separate like politics from culture when it comes to like black issues. So yeah.
Well, as a small island babes, who's often, you know, when I'm asked, where are you from? And then you say St. Vincent, they'll be like, oh, Jamaica. And I'm like, no. Stop. No, but okay, sure. And I guess it's like for them, it's their window, it's their access point to understanding Caribbean culture that they've maybe been exposed to. And for that, I'm like, okay, fair enough. If that's the lens for you to understand me by, you know, Jamaicans are my siblings, so I'm not even mad at it, but it would be nice if the influences that all the other small islands have actually brought into things, like for example, carnival is associated as a Jamaican thing. It's actually, you know, a Trinidadian born thing. Yeah. But not a lot of people know that, and like maybe these sorts of like conversations would help create a lot more sustainability of culture, especially when we do bring these cultures into spaces like England and we bring in carnival and we're bringing that message, but people think it's just a fun time. They're not really realizing it's an entire revolution. We're literally claiming back those streets in real time. Like everything that happened in those streets of West London, that is exactly why we are there and taking up all the space and being loud about it. Yeah. Like it's never just been about the party. It's always been about the message and knowing people's history and, you know, what those countries have gotten to get their voice heard, especially when the first thing people assume is that you're just from one of the countries. Yeah. It's taken a lot for us small islanders to be put on the map, but like shout out to a lot of artists like Problem Child, who's from St. Vincent, absolutely making waves. Problem is a problem. Yeah, Lady Lava as well, you know, she's putting it on the map for Trini accents, and I'm really here for it. And I also think maybe people don't really notice that it's a different accent. I think unless you're from the Caribbean, you can't always fully tell the like nuances. You're giving them grace. I mean, sometimes it's very obvious, but it's like I can understand why if you had no idea, if you've never been to those countries and you didn't actually listen to the dialects, you wouldn't know that was that was that. But I'm loving my personal exploration into like being like, that's a Trini accent, that's a Guyanese accent, that's a Barbadian accent, like Bayesian accent. Yeah, go for it.
A question that came up to my head as you were talking was like, who is our audience when we're talking about this information? Because I feel like, especially coming from New York, which is like the Caribbean in America, these are not things that we're confused about. You know, for within like black people talking to black people, or there's Caribbean people talking to Caribbean people. So it's like, who are we speaking about when we say like they and their understanding? Is it white people? Is it British people? Because that's kind of, I guess, my point of contention as well. Just like, do they need to understand? Yeah. Like, who is it for? Like, who is? And obviously, there's cool things about that as well. But like, just something that came to my mind as well.
I like that train of thought. I think for me, whenever I've told people that I'm from Jamaica and Barbados, the Barbados is silent. Meanwhile, I was raised by my Bajan family primarily. So even when I'm like just engaging with like social media and people are sending me memes and it's like Jamaican mum jokes, I'm like, this is not relevant to me. My mum is Bajan and she's from Stonebridge, like in Northwest London. So I think the they is like everyone else, because your own community, we all cuss each other, right? So we all cuss each other and have jokes about like that accent or like, you know, how you guys speak, how you guys move. It's everyone else that is like not seeing the nuance. And I think they're lazy. Like, I don't even think that it's that they can't tell which accent is which, because if it was an accent tag, they would know what's the difference. They can tell the difference between New York accent and like Compton. So they can tell the difference between ours if they care. But I think that instead of it being like us trying to show that we're just as important, I think we can actually start ignoring people when they say everything is Jamaican. Like, I think we should start making people feel stupid, because it's lazy. And it's like, there are so many nuances within Jamaican culture alone that people don't understand. Like, not everyone listens to dancehall from they were in the womb. Like, some of us didn't listen to dancehall until adulthood because it was too slack. There are things that they wouldn't get if they're calling everyone Jamaican. But yeah, I agree with the whole decentering like everyone else. It's just hard because we are not in the Caribbean. So we're constantly having to claw our spaces and like we're trying to make community whilst also still keeping individuality. So it's sticky. Okay, I think we have time for one more question. Okay, how do Caribbean communities in the diaspora maintain cultural identity across generations?
I think food is a big way, and this touches on the last question as well. But I think there's so many things in the Caribbean that circulate interchangeably.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think it's like diaspora wars in the Caribbean. You know, we like Guyanese food and Jamaican food and Trini music and this and that. Like, it's very much, there's not so much of distinction or segregation, even within the actual countries themselves. So I feel like there's a lot of cultural exchange that happens. But I think the accents are a big part of that nuance and that individuality. The food as well. Yeah. Just the general nationalism, that kind of, you know, but it's lighthearted. But I think for future generations, it's a really interesting point, because I think there's kind of this hybridization that's happening, which kind of already has happened in the UK as well. But it's like, yeah, we're Caribbean, but we're also British. Or we're also American. And so just kind of juggling like this new world where everything is so like interchangeable, like so hybridized. And I think, I don't know if there is such a distinction that will still happen with like this like purity in a way. I don't think that really is realistic at this point. I think there's a value in an exchange, but just like that sense of knowingness and respect from where things come from, and honoring the spaces that they occupy, for me at least.
I like that. Anyone else who would like to contribute? I will repeat it. The question was, how do we maintain community across generations?
Small one, because I kind of spoke about this in depth in my very, very first answer. But I'm interested in the practice of ancestral work through the way of like wake work. It's like a type of theory that I read about in art spaces often. But what does it mean to have conversations with ancestors? Some we do like and some we don't like, especially from someone like me who's from like my both parents are Jamaican, but on my mum's side they're super like mixed up, and there are ancestors we do and don't like. And what does that mean? What does that mean in proximity? Like, what does her proximity to whiteness means, and things like that. And I think the answers to how to do that type of work well lie in the, whether it's nature connection, whether it's spiritual, religious connection, however you see it, to like our ancestors, and especially, as I mentioned, we're in ideological and spiritual warfare right now, like the taking from them like the tools that we have to apply to our everyday, and really I feel like that's the key to our resistance and the key to our sustainability.
Come through, we have another answer.
I'll just say quickly that I think through teaching, you know, through actually passing down these skills is necessary, and that's something that I really love to bring with shout out Felt Sound System, which is like trying to train people to know actually the effort that it takes into running a sound system, because it's not just like pull up and do. It's lift, it's heave, it's sweat, it's what's going on, you know, it's all of that. But it's also, it's a lot of learning, and it's a lot of like growth and affirmation of what that tool was made for us and what's there to like service for our community. So sharing knowledge, like share the songs to your community, don't gatekeep too much within your community, and give those nuggets of wisdom and tips so that people might make their own mistakes, but let's try not really don't like try and
berate
gain for someone's fall, like to watch them like mess up and make a mistake. Like if you can try and avoid it, try it, but if they ain't listening, then if you're not here, then you gotta feel.
Literally. Okay, and then let's swap the order so that you can be on the camera too.
I just wanted to say that I'm craving community outside of the club.
Yes.
I feel like there is just, I don't know if it's just
why's everyone being shy?
age,
Come back.
I don't know if it's just like our age, but I feel like a lot of Caribbean communities or spaces are doing things in the form of clubs, and I don't know how much you can connect through that and how much you can connect with older generations as well.
Yeah.
So I feel like random conversation with someone you see on the street, like an elder, like especially in a world where we don't have a lot of access to spaces and community spaces for free anymore, I feel like just striking up a conversation with an elder can really help to connect a lot of dots. And I feel like I've done that randomly every now and then, and like found out that we have a relative in common, or like we know someone like through our grandparents and stuff. And so I just honestly think like random conversation and going to community events that aren't like club focused can really help to like strengthen ties with older people. Yeah. Especially when they don't have access to like social media and stuff like that. So.
And I think as well, sometimes we forget that like our existence is not a coincidence here. So it's like our ancestors fought for this. Like even the concept of carnival being after a massive tragedy and constant oppression and being squeezed until they pop. It's like we can't let carnival now mean nothing, you know, and we can't let the community gatherings be like a burden. Like I don't really know where I would go if I wanted to commune with like older people from my community, unless there was like, they have like a pepper pot club in Ladbroke Grove, but I don't know if that is still open to people going. And it's not really on my priority list either, because it's just not like, I'm trying not to be broke. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm in this survival mode, so it's hard to come out of the survival mode and do it, but it's necessary because we won't survive otherwise.
Yeah, if I say a couple of things about the elders. First off, any elders listening, you lot should reach out to more people. 100%. Some of us want to hear your stories. And I just wanted to say about like organizing intergenerational spaces, because I do run one, but I run like a queer-centered one that's supposed to be intergenerational. To do that work is a lot more effort than a lot of people think, and a lot of, from what I know about producing club nights, it's almost more work for me to do. Because you mentioned, like someone mentioned before about social media, what does it mean to do engagement, real life with someone in their 60s? I used to pop up a lot like a random on the Domino's Club in Loughborough Junction. Like when I first went into those spaces, I was like, yo, I'm so unprepared to be like being around so many uncles. And what does that mean? What does that mean for my identity? What does that mean for me just being a young person who is also really shy? What does it mean to just be like some random tall person standing in the back of a Domino's Club, like jumping up and down? And kind of that type of experience, and seeing like, again, a disconnect, or realizing that outside of like my mom or outside of my immediate family, which many of which I don't necessarily see or speak to, it's like I have to, how do I get that practice even if I'm not with all of my family all the time? But it takes a lot of work, and some people aren't ready to do that. People aren't ready to be, from my queer perspective, like misgendered or ask stupid questions, well, quote unquote stupid questions. Some people are not ready for some of the jokes. And I'm seeing like the engagement piece on like both sides, younger people and older people, with some of the elders that come as kind of allies. There are a lot of them like, they're super straight, but they might have like a queer niece, or just want to support. Some of them just really love the game of dominoes and believe like everyone should play it. But that also then has to mean that I have to hold space for like one, really persuading them to come if it's like a space that they're not used to frequenting, or two, like, you know, if I am entering their space or entering other spaces, to be like mindful of like this is generative and transformative, and that sometimes can be unknown and uncomfortable or unfamiliar. Like even the way that I speak in my slang really, really fast, like I'm not necessarily physically understood. Like, and do I actually know how to sit and play dominoes? Sorry, my project is like queer dominoes.
Before we continue too much, we're running out of time. So I just want to say we have time for one more question.
I have one more point just to add.
Okay.
Sorry, I'll just keep this quick. But this is something I think about a lot, and I feel like ordinarily when we talk about like intergenerational relationships, it's like it's not as if we've ever normalize like having like an older best friend unless you're working and stuff. I think a lot of those relationships start in the family, and I feel like a lot of the Black community at large have had such dysfunctional relationships to their family in the way, so like what ends up happening is that we're not able to connect with our elders, and not even elders as in like great grand, but even like your aunt and uncle, you know, it's not too far apart. So I feel like a lot of what I've been really reflecting on is how to heal those relationships within my family, like if it's possible. And I think there is this shift that's happening across the younger and older generation where it's like, damn, we're getting old. We need to like connect, you know? So I feel like for me, it's starting at the family as the source of like, because that's your direct history, that's your story, that's your people, and just like observing like how do those spaces exist, like where are those people, how can we connect with them, and then by mending that or in tandem, we can also begin to outlook to other elders who are also strangers, you know what I mean? But I just wanted to say that point on the familiar point, like to really recognize like the importance of healing and nurturing those relationships while they're here, at least if possible.
But thank you everyone for sharing your thoughts and your vulnerabilities and your tea. I'm gonna put the music up, and then we have a superstar amazing DJ called Levon the Don, that's me, who's gonna be playing for the first 30 minutes before we switch over. So I'm just gonna turn the music up and the mic off, and you are locked into Foundation FM.